right, folks. It's 11:01 Eastern. Again, thank you very much for joining today. Today is all about smart contracts, which is pretty cool in my mind. And we have great guests. We have Manish and Levy from DAML from Digital Asset. Today, I'll let them introduce themselves in just a bit. Um, Before that, a quick intro on CBSCA. If you haven't joined before, Canadian Blockchain Supply Chain Association. We're here to help the supply chain ecosystem better understand and adopt blockchain. And we're also holding a hackathon type event that's starting off shortly. And I'll have to mute my mother who's trying to call me. So more information on our hackathon in just a bit. And more information on Hack the Chain, cbsca.ca/hack the chain. And so I'd like to introduce Manish and Levy. Guys, go ahead and introduce yourself. After that, I'll just do one more slide to quickly give you some thinking ideas. And lucky for you today, for folks who have been on our webinar before, I don't talk a whole lot today, so lucky you. Over to you guys.
Okay, hi. Yeah, thanks, Eric. Welcome, everyone. Thank you so much for attending. My name is Manish Grover. I look after channels and solutions at Digital Asset, and I'm based in New York.
Yep. Hi, guys. Levin Tabarsi here. I'm a computer scientist on the sales team here at Digital Asset. Been with the firm about 2 years. I too am based out of New York. Nice to meet you all.
Where apparently it is as cold as here in Montreal. Just to get, before we kick this off and hand over the controls to these guys, our competition, our event is all about making supply chain better, right? And helping you immerse yourself into blockchain, into smart contracts, and get you thinking around what you could do. And on screen here, we have a couple of examples that are suggested, but bring in your own ideas if you want to participate in this competition. The possibilities are endless, right? Today we're looking at procurement, we're looking at end-to-ends, from PO, from quote to transportation to delivery to payment, all within a smart contract. But the possibilities are endless, and just get your juices flowing a bit and think of what you could bring as an automation around smart contracts in your business. So with that said, enough of me, and over to you guys. I will stop sharing my screen and hand over the control to you.
Yeah, and I can start sharing quickly. Great. Can you see my screen, Eric?
Yes, sir.
Okay, perfect. So what we wanted to cover, of course, Levy and me, both of us, and what we wanted to cover today was a quick, inputs on what tools are available to you for the hackathon, for the tech off, for the next 2.5 months. What kind of assistance you can expect. Then we'll dig into today's supply chain use case. So we took a simple, end-to-end procurement use case. And you can see how we model it in DAML and how we deploy it and how you can interact with it live. So hopefully that will be exciting. So our aim is to get you up and running from idea to a demo within a couple of days, actually, maximum. So the more time you spend ideating, more time you spend refining your idea. We wanted to minimize the time you spent actually coding, but creating something meaningful. So I think that hopefully you'll see that. And then finally, exciting, we got a raffle for a free DAML hoodie. So at the end of the webinar, I'll keep a list of everybody who's online right now, and we'll do a live raffle, and then we'll give away a live DAML hoodie, or give away a DAML hoodie live. So for the hackathon, there are 3 kinds of things that we are obviously here to help you. So we'll provide technical mentoring, so dedicated sessions to help you or get you started with DAML or smart contracts. How do you take your business process and convert it into an application? So we'll help you with all of that, and we can also help you with DAML cloud environment for deploying your app and actually getting it ready for live demo. And we'll try to create a few standing sessions But of course, when you're on the community Slack or you're on the community forum, just let us know if you need help, and either me or Levy will get in touch with you, and we can do a one-on-one session with you as well. Same thing around use case finalization. So sometimes I think we've got ideas in our head, but we don't know if it's going to be the right use case, or how easy it is to implement, et cetera, et cetera. So we can definitely whiteboard your use case with you, nail it down to the business process level so that it can easily be modeled using smart contracts, and you can show the benefits, and you can actually demo the application to someone. And then finally, we can help you with demo preparation as well. Any additional sessions that you need to go from, hey, here's a prototype, quick proof of concept that I created. Now I want to get it ready for the demo. So we can definitely help you with some of that brainstorming and some of that assistance as well. So just let us know. And there are two easy ways to get in touch with us. First of all, join the DAML community forum. That's on discuss.daml.com. I'll send you the link afterwards. And then another one, we've created a specific Slack channel for this hackathon. It's hash CBSCA hackathon. It's on our community Slack, and I'll send you that link as well. So just
And we'll be
join that.
posting that on the CBSCA website as well, right after this event.
Okay, perfect. Thanks, Eric. So what are the tools we are going to be discussing today? So obviously, you might need a front end for your application. Say, you want your suppliers to log in or something. You obviously want to create your actual multi-party workflow using smart contracts. So in this case, a supplier and a buyer and a transporter and a warehouse. How do all of these guys coordinate with each other? Where is the smart contract that and the workflow that helps with this business process? That is your core workflow, obviously, that you'll write using DAML. And then you need to deploy all of this into a live environment so you can run it and show it. For all three, we have a nice React UI template that you'll see today. Very easy to use. Download it, modify it a little bit. You don't have to actually code anything. Just look at the sample code and just copy and paste stuff, and your front end would be ready. Your multi-party workflow itself will be written in DAML, and then we'll deploy all of this to a DAML cloud environment, which is projectdaml.com. And that environment is also going to be able to allow you to interact with enterprise systems like SAP, for example, or your inventory planning system, which you may or may not do during the hackathon, but any external systems as well. Like you might want to send an email, or you may want to do something else. So Project Devil allows you to create those simple integrations as well. And of course, this is a fully managed environment. So you don't need to worry about authentication or anything like that. And you'll see a little bit of that today. So, just quickly a little bit on, the rationale for this tech off. So obviously, we've seen historically, technology and business process, obviously, there are so many islands that exist both within the enterprise when you're thinking of, one application sending data to another application, or there being a time lag between updates in one application and when somebody else sees the update, say your customer, for example. You might get an update from your transporter, but the customer may see that update 4 hours later, for example. So things like those. And then obviously, different applications use different technologies. Somebody's on the mainframe, somebody's writing on, .NET, somebody's on Java, and the way to interact with them with that is through, either APIs or file transfers or message-based, in infrastructures like MQ and all that. And because of this, what happens is islands start appearing both within the company as well as between two companies. And that's the problem that we are trying to solve. How do we get all of these guys on the same page so all of them can access the same golden source of data and minimize all this reconciliation, data passing back and forth, cleaning, issues with the aggregation of data, issues with analytics. So how do we, help alleviate some of those issues? That's where your smart contract model comes in. So you're maintaining privacy between all of the parties. So whether it is within the enterprise or outside the enterprise, but at the same time, you're creating your business workflow in a way that allows all of these different parties, applications, or different companies to operate off of the same data backbone. And that's what you'll see today, how we are bringing suppliers, buyers, transporters, warehouses on a common real-time universal record of truth. So you no longer have to pass data back and forth and incur all those latencies and issues that you face with data mismatches and process failures and all that. So this is your stack, and I'm just going to mention a couple of things here. So since you're using DAML for the hackathon, DAML is where your main smart contracts are going to be written in your core workflow. The beauty of DAML is that once you write this, you don't really need to worry about where you're going to deploy it on. Right now, we are going to use Project DAML for this hackathon, but tomorrow your application as is, you don't need to modify anything, and it will run on any other blockchain platform that you see here without any changes. And you can also run it on databases. So that is very crucial when you want to run your workflow inside your company. For example, say you want to make sure there's good collaboration between your SAP ERP system and your on-demand inventory management system that you might have from some other vendor. Typically, you pass data back and forth, but now you can connect both of them through DAML. And obviously, you don't need a blockchain within the company, so then you deploy it on a database, or a cloud database of your choice. Similarly, once the second thing I wanted to mention here is once you've got your DAML network up and running, for example, within your company, you can seamlessly interact or execute atomic transactions across another network that you might have set up between your enterprise and a supplier. So where your supplier may not want to be on your database, of course, so you'll deploy a blockchain application, and then your application which is running within your company can interact seamlessly and atomically with this network that you've set outside. So that's the interoperability promise that DAML gives you. So those are the two main things I wanted to mention. And of course, this is your DAML cloud environment. We'll see some of that later, but DAML cloud also provides you the same interoperability features in addition to all of the other benefits. Like you don't have to write your own authentication. You don't have to, do disaster recovery, performance management, nothing. DAML takes care of all of that, but it also allows you to interact with other networks. Okay, so getting down to the use case for today. So we thought we should model something realistic. So this is what Levi and I have modeled over the past, maybe a day and a half, actually. So we have 4 stakeholders: a buyer, a supplier. Before I go there, any questions? Like, feel free to ask questions. Let's keep it interactive. So if you have any questions, please post them on the Q&A, and we can take the questions as we go. So on the workflow, we've got 4 stakeholders: buyers, suppliers, warehouse, and a transporter. And there can be obviously multiple of these. And this is the workflow. So create a request for quote, check with the warehouse. The warehouse would confirm the price, prepare the quote, send it to the buyer. And then the buyer is going to send you a purchase order. Supplier is going to create an order, notify the transporter, pick up the material from the warehouse and deliver. And then buyer is going to make the payment. So a simple business process, but as you can see, all of this is fraught with, islands today. So when a buyer creates a request for quote, you'll probably create it in your ERP system, for example. From there, it's going to go through your procurement system over to your supplier. The supplier is going to generate stuff, and there's so many different systems that you've got to interact with. So you can create this business process using smart contracts, but you can still integrate it with your existing ERP systems and procurement systems and all of those, using the REST API that the smart contracts provide. So your applications don't need to change, but you're creating the underlying business process using smart contracts. And of course, one other thing is, you might want to say, hey, if everybody's using the same smart contracts, how do we maintain privacy? So, obviously, each of these parties are, by default, data for each of these parties is kept private from each other. So for example, you'll see down here, when a transporter is not going to be able to see the quotation that is prepared by the warehouse or by the supplier. Even the warehouse is not going to be able to see the quotation that has been prepared by the supplier based on the price they gave. And so things like those. So that's the use case we wanted to show you today. And we do have a reference application, which is much more robust and comprehensive with automations and all that. That's open source. I'll post this link, or Eric will post this link after the webinar, and then you can take a look at that as well. Yeah, and now I think we could get into the demo. Levi, do you want to add anything?
No. I think you've covered it well.
Okay. So I'm going to stop sharing, Levi, and I'm going to give the screen to you.
Okay. All right, let me go ahead and share my screen. So we'll implement, I hope you all can see the black terminal in front of you. So we'll implement a part of this today from scratch, going from the RFQ all the way to the quote. And I'll show you how you can make the 3 different parties which are involved in that transaction, how they can interact, and hopefully you can see how simple it is to wire up these multi-party workflows without having to worry about the underlying persistence layer in any way. So I'm going to start a new project. Oh, and excuse me for the clacking. I've got a mechanical keyboard. I love these, but sometimes they are a little bit too loud on these webinars. So I'll try to type softly. So I'm going to start a new project from scratch entitled CBSCA. And the DAML SDK will then create a skeleton project for me so that I don't have to start from a blank slate while I start writing my DAML. So let me go ahead and CD into that. Okay, so when I open DAML Studio, this is really Visual Studio Code that is being opened for me with a DAML plugin enabled that lets me do neat things like syntax highlighting, in-place unit tests, and so forth. So this shows you kind of your very first smart contract that you could write. But instead of going over that, I'm just going to go ahead and start from scratch. Okay, so I'm creating a new module called main, where I will describe the interaction between the 4 parties. The first type of smart contract that I will build out is going to be the request for quote. So most of the time when you're writing DAML, you're writing these things called templates, which describe the data and the behavior associated with smart contract on any number of ledgers. So, what is the data associated with a request for quote? Well, one of the more important items is the buyer who's actually requesting that quote, and the supplier whom he's requesting it for. Let's give the request quote for a name. Yep, let's give it a name. Let's give it a quantity, and we can leave it there for now. Obviously, you know, real life examples are much more sophisticated than this. The item descriptions are probably much more detailed. You can provide a SKU, and DAML lets you create very actually sophisticated types and data types that become first-class members of your language. So in a way, you can write kind of a domain-specific language for the type of thing that you're providing quotes for. But for now, we'll keep it simple, and we'll just keep it as text for the item name. Next, I need to assign a signatory to this template. And in this case, I will do so for the buyer. What this means is that the buyer undersigns on any consequences of the actual quote. So anytime there is some sort of an obligation that might result from this quote, they will be on the hook for it. And if you're using an underlying blockchain, you can always trace the exact spot where the buyer signed off on either the contract directly or indirectly by, let's say, signing a master agreement or something like this. So we're sort of adding something to kind of a typical blockchain smart contract language by having this traceability of who signed off and when exactly. Okay, so this is the side of the asset, which is the obligation. The other side of it is sort of the actual asset. It's giving somebody a choice to do something with the contract. DAML's contracts are almost always structured this way. There's somebody on the hook to do something, or a set of parties on the hook to do something, granting rights to other sets of parties to avail themselves of the contract. So what this request for quote really is doing is it is giving the buyer the obligation to, basically honor their request for quote. If a price is given, they will be on the hook for it. And it's giving the supplier the option to actually try to fulfill that request. So in this case, what the supplier is going to do is he's going to check with a warehouse to see, one, is there inventory, is there, and what is the price of the item according to the warehouse. So what we'll do is check with warehouse. It won't return anything. It'll return a new type of contract called, what did we call this, Manish? I think it was like warehouse check.
Warehouse check. Okay. Yeah, warehouse check.
Okay, cool. Or let's call it how about this? Let's call it an inventory check. And obviously, you should name these things so that it flows very nicely with your business. It was it warehouse check or inventory check? I forget now.
You can put warehouse check for now. I think it should be okay.
All right. Where the supply
Levy, at this point, you're asking the warehouse to confirm inventory. Is that correct?
Exactly.
Or you're asking maybe your WMS to confirm inventory.
That's right. And it's possible to send this thing out to multiple suppliers and multiple warehouses and so forth, and maybe even have DAML sort of automate the which one is the best price and so forth. But we'll just keep it simple for now. It's going to be just one warehouse that we're checking with. But all of those sort of asynchronous multi-party workflows are possible. And what we're doing is we're sending this warehouse check to an actual warehouse. So now I actually have to wire up the other template here. But let's pause there for a second and go over what we have done here. So on the one hand, we're putting the buyer into an obligeable position, and we're giving the option to the supplier to basically kick off the workflow with his warehouse. Okay, and like I said, DAML templates are almost always constructed this way, where there's an asset and a liability basically on the contract, or a must do and a can do. All right, so let's model out the warehouse check. And the cool thing is that you get to wire these different types of obligations together to form multi-party workflows. And there's lots of you can also think of these as states within your workflow. So there might be the RFQ might have different stages as it's going through a workflow. First, it's the RFQ. Then it becomes a check to the warehouse. Then it becomes a confirmation from the warehouse. And lastly, it becomes an actual quote. You can think of them as states, but I kind of like to think of them as who has to do what and when, under what conditions. All right, so with the warehouse check, it's actually the same set of attributes as before. Except we're also adding the warehouse as a party on this. Now, who's the signatory here? It can be the buyer, and we could certainly make it work that way. But we're better off actually indicating the supplier as the ultimate as the ultimate signatory for this. And the reason for that is you probably want to conceal this part of the workflow from the buyer. And disclosure within DAML is actually always by construction. It's actually, you'll never see a contract unless you're a stakeholder to that contract. And the only way you can become a stakeholder on it is if you're a signatory or a controller on that contract, or there's a third option, which is to be just an explicit observer on it. Okay, and that should work. Why am I getting an error?
I think your warehouse is spelled incorrectly on
There we go. Okay, that should, still spelled incorrectly. Warehouse, can't spell today. All right. Okay, so now, and by the way, this double dot just means that take all of the fields from here and copy it onto the next template. All right, so the supplier is a signatory on this warehouse check. And so who's going to be the controller on this? Who are we giving the option to? It's a rhetorical question. I will answer it, but it should be the warehouse who actually checks the inventory and set a price. And the next one is warehouse confirmation, right?
Yeah.
Okay. And the warehouse at this point is able to
Provide a price.
Yep, would potentially provide a price for this. And basically give that back to the supplier. Once again, unbeknownst to the buyer. So in this case, note that the buyer is no longer a signatory. So he actually doesn't see this contract. All he sees is that a request went out to the warehouse. He knows that his request for quote is being processed because it's no longer active, but the warehouse is now the one with the choice and the supplier is the signatory. So that means they're the only two parties that actually see this warehouse check. The buyer no longer sees this. Okay, so now let's template out the warehouse confirmation. And it's the same stuff as before. And you can also see how we're kind of enriching the data of the in the workflow. So effectively the supplier adds the warehouse adds the price, and then the supplier is going to add now the quoted price afterwards. And we'll see that in a sec. So who's the signatory on this? Actually, it's both the supplier as well as the warehouse. So now we have two obligations on this warehouse confirmation, because on the one hand, the supplier is obliged to honor what the warehouse is saying, and he's also has an obligation back to the buyer to provide the quote. So therefore, they're both the signatories on this. And what we will do is we'll have the actually, no, it's the supplier at this point. The supplier at this point can actually provide the quote. And what this is going to end up as is a quote. And he will provide a quoted price, which hopefully is larger than the actual price which was quoted to him.
Unless it's a trade promotion.
Sorry?
Unless it's a trade promotion. It's a promotion.
Exactly. So basically the supplier is able to put a haircut on or a margin on top of what is being quoted from the warehouse. And the neat thing about these assert statements, when you put them in conjunction with other actions on the ledger, is that you are sure that any sort of failure that occurs in one of these transaction blocks does so atomically. In other words, nothing in the transaction block is going to succeed partially. It's all or nothing. So either this is true or the quote is never going to happen. You're never going to have a situation where, let's say, the warehouse confirmation still exists and the quote also exists. Effectively, you get double spend protection like this, but you get the sort of more general case of it, which is that you can't have two contradictory events happening in sequence. All right, so create that. And lastly,
and again, Levy, you're creating simple examples here, and you can get into different margins, and you can pre-program all of this well ahead.
That's
of time,
right. That's right. For example, let's say if you had a specific policy for the supplier that you always apply, let's say 10%. You could even do something where 1.1 times the actual price. So you can look it up in a policy table. You can be sure that it's within a sanity bound, let's say, even if you're decreasing it. So these contracts also very oftentimes come with terms and conditions. And sometimes they're directly on the quote. For instance, maybe the RFQ has some sort of a minimum and a maximum on it, and you can make sure that, is it in bounds or is it out of bounds? It can have for instance, the maturity and all of those things on there, and you can do all sorts of checks to make sure that you're within bound of the entire workflow. Yeah, if you like, DAML sort of sets up the rules of the game, and the different participants can move, can make all sorts of decisions, but nevertheless, they're always constrained by the rules of DAML.
Yeah, and Eric, sometimes what happens is, in a realistic scenario, obviously the quotation or the quoted price may come from another enterprise platform, like a pricing application, for example. So you would then send a message to the pricing application from here, get a response from the pricing application, and then prepare the quote. So all of those flexibilities are easily done. But for demo and for the hackathon, I don't think we'll need all of that, but that's why we are just explaining the simplistic scenarios.
Yep. Although if you want to implement that in the hackathon, it's not difficult to do. And
yeah.
So now I've created the quote. It looks very similar, except one thing I wanted to do is, one thing will be slightly different here. Is first of all, the signatory on this quote is now going to be both the warehouse and the supplier. And lastly, instead of a controller, what we'll do is we'll give the buyer observation rights. So that means they can see this contract, but they don't get to do anything on it. They just get to see it for now. If you gave them a choice to, let's say, accept the quote, or if you immediately wanted to put them into an obligation to fill out the shipping order, we could do that as well. But for now, the workflow will end there. And let me just make sure. Oh, quoted price. Here we go. Quoted price. So one problem you might spot here is that we're revealing, in this case, both the price and the quoted price to the customer. So probably we want to take that off. We'll take the actual price from the warehouse off, and we'll just leave the quoted price on it because they can see it. And so we'll leave the workflow there for now. Manish has actually constructed this workflow a lot farther in an example. So I'll show you that in a second, but including, to fill out the shipping order, to put the thing on the truck and deliver it at the end of it. But we'll leave this workflow here for now. Okay, any questions on that so far? Maybe now is a good time to pause on DAML per se. I don't know if there's any Q&A.
Nothing unanswered so far, folks. Feel free to ask anything, right? That's why we're here. Ask your questions, concerns, it helps the group. So go ahead, please.
Okay, so one thing I wanted to mention is that this party type, and you've seen me use it in a number of important ways. It's sort of what makes DAML unique. You know, text and int and decimal, there's date, Boolean, all of that stuff exists in DAML. But party is really what is encapsulating all of the interaction between the front end and the persistence layer. And this will get implemented differently depending on your persistence layer. But as a writer of DAML, you never care, because you only care about rights, you only care about obligations, you only care about disclosure, because that's what makes up your business. Everything else to us is a sort of a technical detail that has no place in the business code. So why should I put things in here about hashing and cryptography and figuring out how to serialize the thing into a blob and deserializing? I don't care about any of that. All I care about is who gets to do what and where, and that is the significance of this party type. And the neat thing about, and therefore this thing will work on any of the persistence layers that we mentioned without changing a single line. And at the API level, so above the DAML runtime, all of the sort of data segregation, all of the rights, all of the obligations will be enforced exactly the same way, no matter what is it's running on. Okay, so as I promised, let me show you the sort of more completed workflow. You'll see that there's nothing really special in there. That's not what I want. So this is, here we go. So you got the warehouse confirmation, the quote, the request to the warehouse. So the same 4 templates that we saw, plus a few more to complete the workflow. So there's the purchase order, there's the order, shipping, a settlement instruction, and so forth, as well as a number of roles so that people can be onboarded to the system. These are not strictly necessary. They just provide some of the terms and conditions under which somebody might operate. But the point is, and I think we will share this, right, Manish, with the group for the hackathon?
Yeah, definitely. Yeah, we'll post it on the Slack channel and make it available.
Yeah. So all it is, it's we're just hooking up a couple of different templates together and forming the entire rules of the supply chain network. One other neat thing I wanted to do before we deploy this is, all right, so I'm in my my folder here for the project. I'm actually going to generate a number of JavaScript bindings. Oh, actually, before I do that, forgot one thing. To compile my code, I need to create a, basically I need to create a bytecode file. So this is compiling DAML into bytecode. This bytecode will run on the DAML runtime, and it will talk differently to the different integration layers, but it will talk in exactly the same way at the API level to your UI or to your integration. So you can kind of, one metaphor here is that the DAR file is kind of like a jar file in Java. It gets interpreted in a runtime, but at the bottom you don't really care what machine the JVM is running on, and the same way here you don't really care what the DAML runtime is running on in terms of persistence. Okay, so I've compiled my DAML into a DAR file, and what I will do is, from this, I get the syntax right, I can generate JavaScript bindings which understand all of the templates that I have just written. All right, so that's the DAR file I just created from the previous step. And now I'm code generating into a file, into a directory DAML.js. Hopefully, oops, don't need the hyphen here. Okay. And there we go. I generated a bunch of gibberish looking JavaScript files, but actually when I go into my previous folder, where is it? Okay, I'll just show it from here. So I've created a DAML.js file. So it's a directory, a bunch of JavaScript in it, but I will go into this and show you that there's actually all of the templates that I've just created. Note the main here are now available as JavaScript interfaces. Hopefully this. Now, this is not easy to understand. However, it's very easy to actually use this in an application. So you can see that there's a quote interface which was made for me, including all of the types that all of the fields that I indicated. Unimportant, except to know that it makes your life as a UI developer a lot easier, as demonstrated here. So here's the DAML.js that actually we created earlier. But when I look at the request for quote page, and this is now TypeScript and JavaScript, this is what we wrote the front end in, we can see that I'm actually importing TypeScript interfaces directly from that code generated code. So what this does is allows me to do things like query the ledger for all the requests for quote contracts. It allows me to do things like put filters on if necessary and so forth. And the neat thing is that it's not like I have to filter on the user, let's say, or on the supplier or anything like that. Because of the DAML API, this only exposes contracts to which you're a stakeholder. So it ensures the privacy between the different participants without you having to do, add any where clauses or anything like that. And also saves you from having to write that API layer, which you normally have to build between your application and your front end. That's all sort of taken care of for you. And so I think all we're doing here is, first of all, we query all of the requests for quotes. And then in a table, in an HTML table, we loop through all of the contracts and display them in a table. We're not very good at UI folks, but nevertheless, this is very, very simple for us to write.
Yeah, and this is the UI template that is available open source. It's on the GitHub repo, and we can send you the link. So just use this, and as you can see, you don't really need to code anything except replace template names by another template name and replace the function names by another function name, and this UI template will work. And you'll see that in a couple of minutes.
Yep.
So Levi, we have 10 more minutes.
Okay. Yep. So one more thing there. So this is how you read from the ledger. There's also a API to write to the ledger, and all of the actions that you use to write to the ledger are determined by the choices that you gave on those templates. There's no other way to interact with the ledger, which means you effectively create all of the constraints in your API natively. So there's no danger of accidentally putting your ledger in an inconsistent state, because there's in fact no way to do that. Okay, so I've covered DAML a little bit. I covered the code generation into JavaScript, And so next, what I want to do is deploy this and make it go live. To that end, I'm going to use our cloud-hosted environment called Project DAML. So you can go to projectdaml.com to get access to this, where you're allowed to create ledgers on the fly without you having to work, spin up boxes and things like that. What I've opened here is my console. I have a number of projects that are happening here. There's a Stripe integration that I wrote. There is an authentication with a physical physical verifier. There's a treasury application and so forth. Number of projects, and within each of them, there are ledgers. Ledgers contain everything that a single application needs to be in production. So I've already before I do that, you can easily just spin up a new ledger. It takes a minute or two, so that's why I have one pre-baked over there. And what effectively this does is it spins up all of the persistence and the authentication and all of the REST endpoints that I need to interact with it. And all I have to do actually to run my application is I upload that DAR file that we created earlier, and I'm going to upload a zip file containing my static artifacts from a React application. So this is the front end that we built using that DAML UI template that Manish referred to. Okay, so what I will do is I will deploy both the DAR file and the UI assets, and voila, I'm in production. So if I go over here, actually, why don't I just do this? Once again, this takes a couple of minutes, but here it is. Note that this unique ledger ID is the ledger ID of the one I just uploaded everything to. And now this is kind of a fully functional front end here. There we go. So this is all the stuff that we saw earlier. And in fact, we created a ledger even before this that is available we put some roles in there already. So let's demonstrate that. So this is the test ledger that we created before this. And what I can do here, oops. I can log in with DAML here, and I can see, actually, Manish, do you want to send me an RFQ? I think I gave you the opportunity to do so. You might be on mute.
A buyer or a supplier?
I think we made you. Oh, so one neat thing about this is that if you're entitled to see data because you're the operator of the network, you can kind of navigate the various contracts that you've created. So for example, I think
if you can generate a
I think you're the supplier, yeah.
Yeah, if you can create a request for quote right here for me.
Oh, okay. So as the buyer, oh, and the other neat thing about this is that it creates a UI for you so that you don't have to, let's see, I don't know, beer, 12 beers, please, from.
Good choice.
Thank you. From this ledger party. That ledger party is actually Manish's unique identifier. Yeah. So that's Manish's unique identifier, and you should see that, Manish. Do you?
Yes, I'm seeing a request for quote.
Do you want to share that actually?
Yeah. Let me share my screen. Okay, so for those of you who can see my screen, I logged in as the supplier. Here's my ledger ID, party ID, and I see a request for quote, which has been sent from Levy to me here. And now I'm going to send a request to the warehouse to check with the warehouse. And Levy, do you want to send me the warehouse party ID?
Yep, will do.
So it's going to ask me the unique identifier of the warehouse. And obviously, because this is a demo application, we are having to specify these party IDs. In a real application, this will obviously be a drop down of my own warehouses, and I can select one of them to send the request to.
I have selected to you. Does that work?
I'm getting it now. Yep, got it. Okay, and then I'm going to send it to the warehouse. Hopefully it will work. Yep. And now, Levy, I think you can see the warehouse screen on your side, I think.
Yep, I can. So if you want to.
Stop sharing.
Okay. Okay, here we go. And this is Manish sent it back to me.
Request to warehouse on the top, I think.
Oh yeah, there it is. That's the request to the warehouse. So as the warehouse, I'm playing all of these roles in this network here, but normally, obviously, these would be disparate individuals. And you can see, in fact, that I see Manish as a party, but I don't see any of the data to which he's a stakeholder, unless I'm also a stakeholder to it, which in this case is the. I can see that he's the supplier on this contract, but as the warehouse, I can, let's see, give him the price back. I don't know. It's what's 12 beers worth? $100. Too much, but whatever. New York. So there we go. So I can send that back from the confirmation, and Manish should see that. I won't necessarily show that. I think we're kind of
I'm seeing
running
it,
up on
I'm
time.
going to confirm the price, and now you should be able to see it on your console. And I'm quoting $120 on it, so you'll see it.
Okay.
As when you're the buyer, I think you'll be able to see it.
Okay, then there's the quote.
With $12, yeah, $12. Okay.
$12 for 120. Notice that we never got to see the 100 as the buyer. So all of this is segregated.
Yeah, so what we can do is we have this ledger online already. We'll send the link over to you guys, and just let us know what role you want to play on the ledger, and we'll send you an invitation, and then you can accept the invitation and begin to play with the application on your own. So this is completely live. Of course, the workflow is pretty limited. You can send a code, get a shipment out, but that's all you can do right now. But at least you can play with it and see how simple it was. And of course, as you saw with DAML, you don't have to worry about any technical mumbo jumbo. It's just your business process, and just deploy it. Levy went into a little bit of detail doing code gen, etc., but you don't need to worry about that at all. Also.
Okay, I sent
that brings up a great point, guys. At one point, does coder need to sit down with maybe procurement professional or supply chain professional, right?
Yeah.
Both of these two parties need to come together, and that's what we were discussing at the beginning. Exactly. Is breaking down the silos, right? So we need these two parties to sit down together within an organization and work this flow.
Exactly. So this is the one that you need to start with as soon as you decide to participate. This is where the business and the technology guys come together, and they say, okay, how do we want this workflow to look like? In this case, this is a procurement workflow here, but you might come up with any workflow. It could be like, how do I get the demand from a retailer? How do I, make sense of the demand? How do I send it to my factory, et cetera, et cetera? So you can come up with all kinds of use cases. But what will help you begin to write your blockchain application for the hackathon is to create this essentially, and once you have this, then you saw how easy it is to actually get your demo up and running.
What we find, Eric, a lot of the time is that there'll be some more technical person and a more business oriented person, but we didn't get into this too much, but DAML is written in such a way that the business person is able to comprehend not only the workflow, but the test cases that they may write.
Right.
So and a lot of the times I've gone into collaborations with kind of my more I hate to say more functional people, but like my less technical colleagues who are more subject matter experts, and they've oftentimes written the test cases for me that I need to comply with, and then I'll write the DAML, let's say, on the back of that, and they'll be able to check for things like, hey, that's the wrong signatory, or that's disclosed to the wrong person. So
yeah. Okay, so I think we are on the raffle stage now. Eric, anything else? Here are some next steps for you guys. If you want to get in touch with us, these are the email addresses. Obviously, Eric is going to send you that information as well. Here is the community you might want to register on, and some other links for the DAML SDK. And then obviously the two open source apps that you can use as samples.
So folks, do we have any questions so far? I mean, for me, limitless possibilities. I'm not a coder, but you all saw how easy it is to sit down with that coder person and get it done, right? We've done this in about half an hour. All that's needed right now is, put your ideas together, work your workflows, and the rest seems to be pretty darn easy. So, try it out, have fun. Oh, I have a question coming in here. How much open are Canadian companies to share information through SAP and other ERPs?
So the response to that is, obviously you don't need to share anything from your ERP. I'm assuming that if you are using ERP, you belong to the organization. The only thing we are facilitating here is your information from SAP that already is sent to other applications via file transfers or other mechanisms, which causes a lot of data islands and reconciliation. So that's the only thing we are solving here. We're not asking you to share data that you normally wouldn't. We are asking you to look at what you're doing today and then model it using smart contracts so you can avoid the islands. And obviously, so I think that I think is the key principle here.
So companies are sharing information through SAP in this example already, right?
Yeah.
Be it with EDI or an API or some other mechanism. This is just bringing that sharing to another level.
Another level, exactly. And, getting everybody on the same level. So you just streamline and, minimize the errors in your process.
All right, how do we do this raffle? DAML is.
So what I've done is now for the raffle, I have actually gone to an online website where I've put in all your names. So while Levy was doing the programming, I was coding the raffle website. So I took all the participants and I put them up here. So I won't show them to you for privacy, but I'm going to click the start button and hopefully it will give me a name.
And we could have written this in DAML, but for very good reasons. DAML is awful at random numbers. You need it to be deterministic. So you don't want random things in your supply chain. So
I'm going to click start and hopefully generate the lucky winner. Let's see. Oops, it's actually showing the names, but it's fine, I guess.
Close your eyes.
Winner is
Med.
Amin Idmosi. Okay, great. So Med, we'll get in touch with you offline and we'll get your address and everything and ship the hoodie to you. And just let me generate one more name just in case we run into shipping issues. So let's pick another name as a backup winner.
One thing we did not determine, and congratulations, Lena, is who's getting the beer.
Who's getting
we only have a quote for it so far.
We need to program something for that.
Okay, perfect. Yeah, so we are here then. So we've got this nice hoodie, and we'll send it to we'll email Med.
Yep, we'll take care of that, Manish. Perfect. Any other questions as we come into the top of the hour here? and feel free to ask away. In the meantime, again, thank you very much for participating. We hope you enjoyed. We hope you see how easy it really is, to bring something to life in blockchain. And we hope that this spurs some ideas, some thinking for you to participate in our upcoming hackathon. We'll be sending out all the participants in today's session the deck from Manish and Levy, and we'll make the recording available as well on our YouTube channel. And of course, put up some information on our website at cbsca.ca. So if that's it, again, thank you very much. Thank you guys. Always a pleasure. And if there's nothing else, we'll end the session.
Thank you, Eric. Thank you, everybody.
All right.
Thanks for having
Thank
us.
you.
Bye-bye.